My name is Dan Young, and welcome to the Millionaire Code podcast. I'm a self-made guy that has made multi-million-dollar businesses from scratch. There's no way I could have done it without the help of mentors who provided me with the wisdom and guidance to help me create the formula for success. Each week on my podcast, I'm going to interview a hugely successful business person that will provide you their secrets to success, and that way can act as your mentor too. I can't wait to share their stories and takeaways with you. Welcome to Dan's Millionaire Code. Hi, Dan Young here with Dan's Millionaire Code podcast. And as you know, every single week I'll bring you an amazing human being that's doing amazing things. And this person every week will share with you some of their experience and secrets in a way to act as your mentor in your endeavors as well. I only ask that you do three things because I'm not asking for money from you, but there are three things I ask you to do. One, if you learn something here, execute, do it. Two, share it with friends and loved ones. And three, take 10% of your gain that you make from this knowledge, if it helps make you more money, and donate it to a great cause. Personally, I like Operation Underground Railroad. If you can support that, great. But just support a good charity, a good cause where you're giving back. So that's it. Today's guest is a good friend of mine, Danny Woodbury. And let me just give you a quick background on him. Amazing human being. Yeah, he oversees all the leasing efforts of Woodbury Corporation across its office and retail portfolio. His role extends into development and acquisitions, and he works as a project lead on many of their developments. He was also a senior researcher for the real estate group at Harvard Business School, where he researched and wrote Harvard case studies and helped restructure the whole real estate curriculum. Pretty amazing stuff. And then one last thing, he graduated from BYU and earned an MBA from Harvard Business School. So, Danny, thanks.
Yeah.
For being here. I'm super excited. I've been trying to get you to come on for a while, and we synced up. Just a couple things. So it's been really fun meeting you and working on some real estate transactions in process with you. And you've taught me a lot already. We've only known each other a little, but it's been really cool. I have to take copious notes because you're super high bandwidth. But tell us about Woodbury Corporation and maybe like the scale of the size of projects that you guys are doing in a little bit.
Yeah, so Woodbury Corporation is a 100-year-old business. This year, we celebrated our 100-year anniversary, which is a huge milestone for us.
Wow.
And it's family-owned. It's in the fourth generation, so I'm in the fourth generation. Technically, it's in the fifth generation. This past 2 years, we've had some of the fifth generation do internships there. They're still in high school, and the oldest ones are in high school and going into college.
That's cool.
So the company's been around a long time. Has real estate projects in 16 states, mostly in the West, headquartered in Salt Lake City. A little over $3 billion of real estate.
Wow.
Shopping centers, office buildings, hotels, housing, senior housing. We also have some side businesses. We have an outdoor advertising company and some other things like that.
Wow, amazing.
So that's a little bit from a high level, sort of who we are. We're doing a lot of active developments, everything, smaller projects. It may just be a hotel or senior housing projects to really big things. We're taking down urban sites and doing, $500 million development projects. So a little bit of everything in between.
So maybe you can give us a little background. So how did it start? It was like a great-grandfather or a grandfather?
Yeah, it was my great-grandfather. So maybe before, as I give the background, I'll sort of explain from a high level how I think about our company and how it's grown and the trajectory it's taken to get to where it is today and where we're going from here.
Super.
So to do that, I'll compare companies to trees.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So in the natural world, many of the trees that live the longest are also the slowest growing. Okay. So like the great sequoias, if you've been to Sequoia National Park, those trees are thousands of years old and they grow really slowly.
Okay.
Or bristlecone pine, which are the oldest trees in the world. There's some in Nevada and America and Utah, the oldest trees, and they grow really slowly. And they put all their nutrients and their energy into longevity, into fighting off diseases and parasites, into persevering through droughts or winter storms or through forest fires. If you go to sequoias, all these trees have huge scars on them because they've lived through hundreds of forest fires over their life. You compare that to other trees that are really fast growing. So in Utah, we have like cottonwoods. They grow really fast. They often don't live very long. And often they grow so quickly that they get so huge and they start to collapse under their own weight.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this when I was working on campus and doing landscaping, and there was a big cottonwood tree. The branches got so huge, one day this enormous branch just fell off, and it crushed a car underneath it. And luckily, no one was hurt. But the idea is it just grew for the sake of growing and didn't last.
Okay.
So compare that to companies. There's a lot of companies that grow really, really fast and put all their energy into growing. Okay. Woodbury is not one of those companies. Woodbury, I'll compare ourselves to the Sequoias. Or Bristol Cone Pine is better because those are sort of ugly and not really flashy.
What's that called?
Bristol Cone Pine.
Okay.
Oldest trees in the world. The oldest one is in Nevada. But so we put all of our energy into the long term and into fighting off economic recessions and to preserving the company so we can continue to thrive, so far over 100 years, but even into the future. And that sort of informs all of our decisions. It informs how we hire. We've never gone through a period where we just go out and hire like crazy to grow. The flip side of that is, during the last recession, when the real estate world imploded and all these companies in our industry were laying off huge portions of their workforce, we didn't lay off anyone.
Wow. So
we never really scaled up to the level that they all did. It informs how we invest. To use a baseball analogy, I think there's a lot of people out there in real estate and other industries that are swinging for the fences.
Right.
They take huge amounts of risk looking for a home run. And frankly, a lot of the people you probably bring on the show are those that connected and hit the home run.
Some are.
But the truth is a lot of people don't. Most people don't. They strike out. And so for the most part, Woodbury, we're not a company looking to swing for the fence or to go home run. We're happy hitting singles and doubles. And if you hit singles and doubles over the long term, then that's, I think, the recipe for sort of a company that can persevere and endure.
We share a lot of the same, even though we're in tech, it's been almost 30 years, but in 30 years, we've never had a year after the first year
you told me
that wasn't profitable. And really because of this, a little bit of conservative approach in growing slowly, but fast enough where you're growing.
Yeah, right.
But having enough reserve that if something
always
crazy
having
happens.
a cushion. Yeah, that's right. And that's how we do it too. I mean, a lot of developers, we're doing a lot of real estate development, are building new projects, flipping them, you make a whole bunch of money, do the next one, and you just keep rolling it. We tend to hold stuff a long time. So I'm working on projects that my great-grandfather built, which I think is so cool.
That is cool.
Right? So it's like, the flip side of it is, you don't capture a lot of that value because you're growing through cash flow. It's more organic. That's sort of how we've done it over time. So the company, that's the framework, okay?
I've noticed,
back to history,
I've watched it quite a bit. You guys have a great reputation for that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, my dad has a quote on his desk. It's from the Bible. I think it's a proverb, and it says, a good name is worth more than riches. We really care about our reputation. Once again, I think it's sort of that long-term thinking. It informs relationships too. If you burn a bridge down the road, that's going to come back and bite you. And we care not about us and what's happening in me, but I'm thinking about what's going to happen to my kids and my grandkids and trying to keep this company going long term. But a little bit of history.
Your dad's quote is similar to my dad's quote. Another biblical quote was, be the man who builds your palace or home on a rock and not on sand. And that seems to be the same mantra.
Anyway, the company founded by my great-grandfather in 1919. Went right through the Great Depression, came out of that stronger than before.
How did he get it? I mean, did he just like, hey, I'm going to do real estate?
He actually wanted to do a furniture business, start a furniture business, but he didn't have enough money. He had enough money to buy a house, and so he started buying and flipping homes back then, 100 years ago.
The single-family homes?
Single-family homes. I think my great-grandma would complain that in the first, 5 years of her life, they lived in, 8 or 9 homes. They kept, going one after another.
Wow.
And after doing that for a few years, had enough money to start the furniture business, but he said, no, this real estate thing is more fun. I'm going to do this. And, there's a great story during the Great Depression. Zions Bank, which was around back then here at a local institution in Utah, had a whole bunch of non-performing real estate loans. They had to get off their books. So they partnered with my great-grandpa, who formed Woodbury Corporation.
Wow.
The bank gave them all their real estate, all those poor-performing loans backed by real estate. My grandpa gave the bank Woodbury Corp stock. And so as my grandpa worked through the portfolio, he bought back stock in his own company. And after working through the whole thing, he then had a big real estate business that was moving along, and he owned his own company that they created to work through this portfolio.
It's amazing. That's pretty smart.
Bank loans.
Wow.
And he did a lot of big land assemblies, so like the state prison, which was nothing then, when it was built 80 years ago. He assembled all that land to do that, and a lot of the oil refineries in North Salt Lake, a lot of the industrial core that you see today. My great-grandpa put together a lot of those projects to start. They had a huge ammunitions plant in the 40s during the World War II that he did, and then that went to my grandpa, who became sort of got more into development, doing a lot of commercial shopping centers, and then my father and his generation. There are five, and they really dived down into doing true real estate development and building up this big portfolio, mostly of shopping centers. And then my generation, I think the unique thing about us, our company is there's, I think, 19 fourth generation active family members. Plus the 5 above us, there's like 24 family members who are working there. And I think that's pretty unique in family businesses. Even those who can survive for 4 generations, typically by the end of that, most of the people don't want to work there. But we're all so passionate about real estate. We all care so much about it that we're all, so many of my cousins, my brothers, I work with all my brothers, we all work together and trying to build this company and take it to the next level. The street says about your family, good things. Oh, okay.
So, and I asked him, you see a lot of family businesses where there's conflict and there's drama, and then you put someone in charge and the brothers want to get the other brother and the sister and hurt each other.
Yeah.
But I've asked people, I'm like, hey, so tell me what do you guys know about the Woodbury family? And like, they're like, first, there's a lot of Woodburys. And I'm like, and they're like, they get along.
Yeah.
Which is weird to see such dynamics. And you were allowed me to take a little tour of your facility, and it's nice. It's very conservative, but clean and efficient.
Yeah.
But so many of your family members there.
Right.
And good energy, good vibes. You don't feel a lot of negative drama. You see everyone collaborating, heads down, doing their work, getting the projects done. How do you do that, man?
How to do that? Yeah, it really comes down to culture. And for us, the family culture is the company culture, and they're one and the same. And I'm going to give a lot of credit. First of all, I'm here talking about the family business. I need to recognize all the people that came before me and all those who are working there today. I'm just one of many. Mm-hmm. I'm not one of these big entrepreneurs who, that you bring on who's control of everything. I'm one of the team. Mm-hmm. But I give credit to those, especially who came before me in creating this culture. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty intentional, actually. Mm-hmm. When I was 10, even before that, my grandpa started doing seminars for his grandchildren. And he would bring us in, imagine I'm a 10-year-old, and he would teach us about the value of real estate investing. He'd teach us about core business principles like the time value of money and inflation. But he would also teach us about what it means to be a Woodbury, what it means to have, honor and integrity and to work hard and to be educated. So these were lessons that were sort of taught to me from a very early age that really, I think, have informed how we operate as a company. And then we had great examples of our fathers and our uncles and everyone who were doing it and living it.
So for this family seminar,
yeah,
how many people would be there? How many?
Well, it was all my first cousins and I. So I don't know, there's probably 15 of us.
Wow. So he would gather all you guys together one
all
spot.
All of his grandkids once in a while, every few years, and do these seminars.
Teach and mentor.
And he would be very intentional about it. That was not even the next generation. That was 2 generations down that he was training. Wow. And I see my dad doing that now with his grandkids. He has his own sort of program. We grew up on the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, the Chronicles of Narnia. He loved reading those to us as a kid. So he calls his Aslan's Army, where he's teaching his grandchildren about what these core principles are, thinking ahead of, these are the people that are going to hopefully keep this business rolling forward in the future. But really, it's pretty remarkable. Of the 5 in the 3rd generation, they share everything equally. They make every decision by consensus. It's not by majority vote. If one person says no, you don't do it. Wow. So I think that sort of culture of, it doesn't matter when you join the business, doesn't matter what degree you have, doesn't matter what deal you just did. We're all sharing everything together. We're all in this together. Together, we're stronger than we are separately. Wow. And that's sort of the mentality of the family. That has permeated through the generations. And yeah, it is amazing. I've worked for other companies. I worked in New York for a while for some big firms. I worked academic area for a little while. Man, there's so much more drama and politicking, I felt like, in those organizations.
There's a lot, though.
Than there are in mine. At least that's how I feel.
Well, you see it in the public light. There's other families doing pretty big projects, even in our little state of Utah. And you see a lot of the drama posted around, like all this crazy stuff. But you guys seem just so calm.
Look, well, things get heated every now and then.
Yeah.
We definitely argue and have different opinions. But it all sort of stays in the conference room. You know, people get really heated up. Sometimes they yell. But then the next day we come to work and you get the job done. You know, you sort of brush it off. And that's just sort of how we get stuff done. And I really just think it's this mentality of like planning for the future, and together we're stronger than we are apart. And that's what sort of helps inform that culture.
An interesting thing, I went to the Woodbury website, and you have a picture of like your dad and all the other Woodburys and uncles and everybody. And really, when you scroll right down to the bottom, there you are, one of the youngest people on there. And my thought was, man, that's the guy I want to have on the podcast, because it seems like, you know, generation passes on, and you're one of the people that are kind of innovating where Woodbury Corporation will go in the future.
Right.
And so maybe we could talk a little bit about that, because the real estate landscape is changing.
Yeah.
Retail, you have Amazon and things, and a lot of those things are happening. What's some of your vision for the family as far as developing the company and also changing the world with philanthropy and different things too?
Right. Mm-hmm. So to start speaking on the real estate side, maybe I'll talk about what gets me really excited about what I do.
Okay.
Talk about my motivations first. And you know, one thing that I really love about real estate is how the built environment changes lives and the quality of life. Okay. So a really small example of a project that I worked on, Stansbury Park. Have you ever been out there?
Yeah, that's a big project.
Yeah, well, I mean, we didn't do all the housing. That was already there. Okay, but 10 years ago, if you lived in that beautiful little bedroom community and you wanted to get groceries, you had to drive to Tooele or drive into Salt Lake. It had no commercial heart. So we went in there and built a little shopping center. And it's super standard, nothing flashy about it, grocery stores and businesses, and all of a sudden, that community has a commercial hub. It changes the way people work together. It will actually allow more housing because now more people are willing to go into the area. I mean, real estate development has a huge impact in communities. You see that on a small scale like that, even some of our larger scale projects like University Place in Orem. Orem doesn't really have a downtown. It has no real true like urban core. And we feel like we're creating that. We feel like what we're doing on that project is creating a mini city where all these mixes all these uses are mixing together. And, you know, we tore down part of the mall, talking about retail, and built a park. And so, for example, when the city of Orem, who just also celebrated their 100-year anniversary this year, when they had their celebration for their city, where did they do it? They did it on our property.
Wow.
So for me, what gets me really excited, you know, is building projects that have an impact on the community for the better.
That is a hub draw, you know, because when we open our small retail stores, I was looking, you know, in that area. Let's be near that project. Let's be real close.
And it totally defines how cities are built and how people shop and are entertained and live and work and everything else.
That's so cool.
So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the retail landscape in shopping centers, dramatically changing right now. You read a lot in the paper. People talk about a retail apocalypse. So I'm not a doomsdayer. Things aren't going away completely, but they are changing and they're evolving quickly. You have a lot of these retailers who started out in bricks and mortar are now trying to adapt and go to online, you know, bricks to clicks.
Bricks to clicks.
And that's a tough transition. You know, in New York, I worked for a company that was a spinoff of Sears, and I got some real inside look at Sears trying to do that, disrupt themselves and go online. It didn't work because they had this huge albatross of the whole company steering their way in bricks and mortar real estate. But it's interesting how things evolve. Talking about Sears because they're an interesting one.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amazon today is all about convenience. You sit at home and you order something on your phone because you don't want to go to a store and it comes to you.
Correct.
So how did Sears start? Sears was a catalog.
Yeah.
Before it was a bricks and mortar location, it was the same thing. I don't want to go someplace. I'm going to sit at home and look at my catalog and call someone and they're going to bring it to me. And then what happened, after doing that for a while, building up that business, they realized, hey, if I open up a physical store, that becomes a showroom. People can see other products. They'll buy more. They'll have a place to return. They'll have a distribution point. And so rather paradoxically, Sears was the Amazon of its day.
You're right. That catalog, that's
and then
big.
Amazon destroyed it because they did it with technology.
Right.
But the point is, Sears saw that whole life cycle. So now what you're seeing is online retailers going bricks and mortar. Now they're going clicks to bricks, not bricks to clicks. And that multi-channel platform looks a lot different. You don't need the same huge footprint that you did in the past. You need fewer stores, but it's still important. There still need places to have a showroom, to have opportunity for people to touch and feel. So all this is to say is retail is not dead, but it is going to change. What we're doing about that, I mean, this is a threat for us because shopping centers are the biggest part of our portfolio. But we also think it's an opportunity because good real estate will always be good real estate. The number three, there's 3 rules to doing success in real estate, and it's location, location, location.
That's it. That's it. Just location. Okay? Yeah.
If you have well-located real estate, that will be valuable. There will be a use for that, no matter time. Throughout time. I forget who said it, but someone said buy real estate because they're not making any more of it. Right? So we were even looking at our own portfolio and saying, okay, here's a shopping center that maybe is past its time. Rents are really low. There's no, maybe a new one got built down the road, overlooking this one. We need to disrupt ourselves. Okay, we have an income stream already right now, but we need to tear that down. We need to tear the whole project down and start from scratch. And that's one thing we're looking at our own portfolio is how can we maximize value? What's the true highest and best use of our own properties? That could be a little scary because, in the tech world, you call it disrupting yourself. We just call it redevelopment. We're going to tear things down and do it again. But we're trying to do that. Personally, I think one of the biggest opportunities in real estate over the next 10 years will be people who can take down dead wall sites. Okay, so in real estate, it's important to have scale. If you have scale, you can do a lot more. I mean, for me, what makes projects in a place like Salt Lake interesting are those that can have a variety of uses in the same location. We're still in a market where people tend to drive, but the idea is you drive there once, you stop, and you get out of your car, and you do multiple things. You spend a long time there.
Okay.
Okay.
Mixed use.
Mixed use. You may go to a movie, you may buy your groceries, you may go to the gym. The point is that you're there for a long time, and these uses create synergy, making a more interesting, dynamic project. To do that, you need scale, and it's really hard normally to get enough land together to execute on that vision. Enter malls. Now, all malls aren't dying. In fact, there's a great bifurcation. Class A malls are having record high rents, record low occupancies, record high valuations. On the lower end, they're dead.
That's right.
Okay, so they're sort of splitting. There's winners and there's losers. And the losers, those projects are going to go away, but ones that are well located create a great opportunity because all of a sudden here you're dealing with 50, 80, 100 acres of assembled land with nothing, well, maybe a building, but all together that already has infrastructure, that already has roads coming to it. And that's a huge opportunity to do something unique and cool. And we have two large-scale projects like that, one that we just bought and one that's under contract that I think can really have an impact on communities for the better. So that's sort of on the real estate side. How
that's cool.
Sort of see things moving in the future. My vision also for the company is sort of looking at, in order, I think, we're making plans not just for next year, 5 years. We're making plans for the next generation. And one of the things I've realized working on projects that were started by my great-grandfather is it's often impossible really to know how things are going to change. But if you're in it for the long haul, what do you need? Well, you need flexibility. You need to make decisions that allow you to adapt and react in the future. So, we're trying to look at that, like I said, in our own portfolio and make sure that, and also in our execution strategy. I mean, right now, okay, so this is sort of interesting. We talked about retail as being the property type that's challenged. Okay, so 30 years ago, if you had a big piece of land and something left over, they'd say, build a shopping center there. Shopping centers always work. So everyone was doing it.
Right.
Because that's what always worked. Today, they're saying, don't build any shopping centers. If you have vacant land, build an apartment building.
That's what you're seeing.
Always
like
work.
Everywhere, right?
So now you're seeing apartments pop up everywhere. And the truth is, things will shift over time. So for us, trying to be in it for the long haul, we want to make multiple bets. We want to hit lots of singles in different property types and be able to execute on a variety of property types in good areas, knowing that, okay, apartments are hot right now, but 10 years from now, it may not be the case.
Do you think we may be overbuilt in those apartments? You see them everywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone's building them.
There will be a correction. And it'll probably be, apartment demand is very closely related to job growth and to the unemployment rate. So there will be a correction, and well-located apartments will do just fine. Those that are not well-located will have some struggle. I don't think in Utah it's overbuilt. I think in other places it might be.
Well, still okay right now.
Yeah, we if you look at the amount of new homes, not physical homes, new households that are being created, the housing stock has not kept up with household creation in Utah. We actually have a dearth. We have a deficit, not a surplus.
Right.
So as long as we keep growing, we're the fastest growing state. Utah's the fastest growing state the past 3 years. As long as that keeps happening, as jobs keep happening, then we need more homes, whether they're single purpose homes or apartments. I don't see that sort of changing over time.
I want to shift gears a little bit here on this, because a lot of the viewers out there are young people and people that have been around for a while, but they're looking to get into real estate development, even on a small scale at first and grow. What's some wisdom and advice that you would give these folks to get started? What are some resources and things that they can do immediately? Because a lot of them think, well, maybe I'll just go to a university and that'll just teach me everything. Is that the case? Is that not the case? What would you say?
I would say that most people in real estate, to be successful in real estate, you do not need necessarily a college degree or higher education. Look, my great-grandfather started flipping homes. That was just 100 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. I think that is probably a good place to start for most people who don't have tons of capital. Starting in a neighborhood where you see incomes and house prices increasing, and buying the crappiest house on that street, where all the other houses around them are more expensive, and then fixing it up and flipping homes. I think that's a good way to do it. Or buying a duplex or a fourplex or something like that. I think you got to start small, but buying them in good areas and doing that. Frankly, that's not what I do, so I can't give you much more wise insight than that. But I think that's a good place to start.
So there's a lot of entrepreneurs who watch the podcast too, and a lot of the entrepreneurs, some of them are making millions a year, and they're spending off all this money from tech and things like that, and they want to get more into real estate. And that was kind of my draw to meet with you to learn more. And some of those companies those people have those resources. What is the best strategy there for those people that have a little bit more liquidity, to be able to get into it correctly?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think it's smart to partner with someone who already has the expertise, at least at first. I think real estate, for someone coming out of tech, they look at real estate as, oh, this is just such a sure bet. Oh, real estate doesn't change in price. And it creates a false sense of security because they're used to, being in tech or in publicly traded markets where values increase so much day to day. The truth is, real estate actually does that to a degree. There are publicly traded real estate companies, and their stock fluctuates almost as much as tech companies, not quite as much, but it still does. So that, there is inherent risk in real estate. There's a saying in our industry that real estate has 10-year cycles, but bankers have 5-year memories. Okay, this is bankers, meaning that people get caught up in saying, "Oh, it's been so good, it's always going to be good." When really that's not the case. Many of the past huge economic recessions have started in real estate bubbles, right? The last one being the biggest one. So there is risk in real estate. So I think it would be smart to partner in some way with someone who knows what they're doing, and create a partnership where you can observe and try to learn. Now I say this knowing that people have done that with us and they've gone off and done things, and that's usually fine because we really care about relationships, and as people have partnered with us and brought us their capital, they learn from it. We make money. They may go off and do something else, but we have a good relationship, and it usually comes back to us eventually. I think that's probably a smart way of doing it. And then the other thing is, just if it's your first bet and you're sitting on a big pile of money, don't over lever your property. Don't take crazy risks. Don't try to swing for the fence on your first one.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself a little room on what you're doing with the amount of leverage you have on the property, with the amount of capital it's going to need to repurpose it, so that if you do fail, you're not going to lose this big fortune you just created.
So as part of that is, would it be so when you're buying a property, your debt you don't want to have so much debt ratio, and then maybe have enough buffer to cover the debt service if it was vacant for a long time?
If it's vacant for a long time, exactly. And most properties, the other thing people don't realize is looking down the road 5-10 years from now, especially in commercial properties, often it costs a lot to, when someone moves out, if you have a business leasing and they move out, do you have cash reserves to repurpose the building, to pay a tenant improvement allowance, to retrofit space?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of, one mistake I see is people sort of distributing everything while times are good, not building up a reserve, and then they'll have a major tenant leave, and all of a sudden they don't have cash flow, a cash reserve to repurpose the property in the way that it needs and maximize the value, and then they can't meet debt service, they lose the property. I mean, you see that.
I almost experienced that a little bit because we bought the building we're doing this interview in. This is pretty good size, and I thought, we'll just lease this front thing out real easy. It'll just be cake. Year goes by, year and a half goes by, and I have to pay the debt service, right? And luckily though, before we did it, we put enough buffer together to do that, and then finally put together a good tenant, and things like that. But you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people lose everything because they're right on the line of risk, right?
Yeah. And obviously for us, I think managing a real estate portfolio is really just managing risk, right? And making sure we have cash flowing properties. I mean, that's one thing that we've done is we've always had a solid core of cash flowing properties. And we're out there doing development, but no one new development is going to take down the company.
It's smart.
And because if something goes under, we have cash from other sources to make it happen. And one thing that I think is unique about us, in 100 years, we've never defaulted on a loan.
In 100 years?
In 100 years, at least to my knowledge, which is pretty unique in the industry.
Wow, that's incredible. What is the biggest challenge that you've ever had, or you've seen your family have in all this 100 years? What's the biggest, scariest thing? Was there anything that had yourself or your grandparents really nervous?
Yeah, for sure. And this is when I was young. So the property we were just talking about, University Place, formerly called University Mall, I say we've grown slowly. We've actually have scaled quite a bit the past few years. The company was a fraction of its size 25 years ago. And let's see, I guess this happened about 20 years ago. We had the only mall in Utah County, and the biggest mall developer in the country came in and built a competing mall down the street, which is Provo Town Center.
Oh.
And that was really, really scary because theirs was brand new and flashy and had all the, it was positioned with modern shopping in mind, and ours wasn't. And I saw this as a kid with my father. During that time, I didn't really see Dad that much. He was super stressed and trying to figure this out because at that point, if that property had gone under, it would have had a major impact on the company because it was a huge portion of the portfolio. And not only did they come in, they stole JCPenney, which was their main anchor. So all of a sudden, we're sitting there with a new competitor stealing our tenants. They have resources. They have a national footprint. We're this local group. And it took a lot of hard work and taking some managed risks to bring in Nordstrom to invest all the money, cut off distributions, take all the cash flow, redo everything with the long term in mind. Mm-hmm. That can be a little scary, because they're, but that's what happened. Fast forward 20 years, now Provo Town Center is going under, and University Place.
No one even talks about that anymore, huh?
Yeah, and
wow.
So that was a huge challenge that I think the family overcame. Much to the credit, I think, of my father and his generation.
That's incredible. That's a big, big save,
Yeah.
Wow. So as far as philanthropy goes, your family has a reputation of giving a lot to the community. And I think before this podcast, like a month ago, we were talking about maybe some ideas, some of the things where you'd love to see Woodbury family be known for as it continues forward the next 100, 200, 500 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, look, it's not really in our culture to try to gain recognition. It's always been that way. And I actually think that's, for the most part, that's healthy, because that's not really what it's about. You know, if we're donating to something, it's not quid pro quo. We're not looking for something in return. And that's frankly how most of our giving is being done.
Yeah, you guys are super humble in the background.
But we're doing a lot.
You know?
And
people don't know.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because that's just not really what it's about. Mm-hmm. Moving ahead, though, I think that there's certain types of giving that that is important that people know. You know, every time you give, it brings recognition to that group. And I think it's not just about giving, but it's then supporting the gift. So one thing that we've done, you know, probably the biggest gift is when we donated to Utah Valley University, which created the Woodbury School of Business. Mm-hmm. Now, the interesting thing is, of the 24 family members, none of us went to UVU. So why are we giving all this money to a school that none of us are affiliated with? Why? Because we cared about that community. We cared about Utah. We saw UVU as the group who was educating all the people that were first-generation college students. I think it's something like 38 or 40% of their student body is the first-generation college students. If you want to change economic outlook for our communities, if you want to change people's lives, you start with education. That's my opinion. Mm-hmm. So we gave them a huge gift, but it's not just here, take our money. It's okay, how can we help you? Mm. You know, and then, you know, we have multiple family members on their board. And, you know, we have people out there family members out there trying to garner a larger group of people, and they've created a Woodbury School of Business board, and they're bringing in other entrepreneurs, other wealthy people in the community for giving and for supporting that business school, and they're doing amazing things. So I think it's, for the most part, we're going to give and not get recognition, but occasionally it makes sense to give with a purpose, draw attention to it because it's something good, and then support it with our network.
So in the future, as Woodbury continues to scale, and you're a big part of that, right? And you mentor the next gen, education is going to be a big focus.
Oh, in our giving? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think education is something that we all for sure can get behind. You know, we're a little bit different. The company itself, Woodbury Corporation, doesn't own all the real estate. All the individuals own it. So every time we give a gift, it's really actually going to 25 people and saying, will you give, will you give, will you give, will you give?
Oh, wow.
We all make the commitment individually.
Everybody.
So sometimes it's tough to coordinate all those gifts. Education for sure is something that I think we care about. You know, we also give, I would say, in kind occasionally. Sometimes we do things on our projects that may not make money, but we feel like it's what's best for the community. Like, I think that huge park that we built at University Place is an example. It cost a few $1 million that we get no money from it. But we feel like it was important, partially for the project. It creates a place for placemaking and gathering, but it's become a community hub. You know, we had a 24th of July celebration there, fireworks, and I think like 5,000 people there. So it's become a real center of activity for the region.
That's cool.
We don't get any money from it.
Wow. Yeah.
It draws people to the project, and maybe they'll spend while they're there. Mm-hmm. But some of that giving, I think, and being just intentional about doing something quality that have an enduring legacy is important.
Wow. You know, one thing that actually, this is a big shift. I have ADD, folks, as you guys know. But this is something that really caught my attention, and I think you brought it up. I didn't even know, but I was looking at the bio page on your site. I'm like, that dude looks really athletic and healthy, and then you brought up ultra marathons.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, you know, and really, you have tons of energy. You're calm and collected and focused, but your energy is really high.
Yeah, I got a lot of energy.
So, you know, and even hearing it from, I think one of your employees, Sean, you know, introduced us. He's like, you're gonna like this guy. He's got some great energy, more than probably anyone in the family. He's really intense and powerful. He's got this inner fire. Is that ultra marathons? And talk about that versus.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would say just personally, I've always had a really strong inner drive to prove things to myself mostly, and to just see what I'm capable of. Mm-hmm. And I think in the past, the focus was, you know, academics for a long time. You know, getting in. You mentioned Harvard. Getting into Harvard was a struggle for me. I'm not a natural born genius. I think I'm bright, but really about the hard work to get in there. And once I was in, I said, hey, okay, I'm here. I got in. Now can I excel? And I got honors there, which was a big thing. So the past, redirecting all that energy.
Well, you're super smart, Sharp. It's just it emanates off you. I was like a D student. So
I appreciate that. Academics, super focusing on that. One thing for me, and just sort of getting real, my first job after undergraduate was with the company. And people always say, oh, he's the son of the founder, whatever. He has it easy. And that's true to a degree. I think broadly speaking, that's probably true. But in some ways, you have it harder. You have to prove it. Everyone else can leave at 5 o'clock. You have to be there working longer than anyone else to prove it to everyone else that you deserve it. So for me, going and getting an MBA at Harvard was part of that, proving it to myself, proving it to everyone, because there's an equal playing field. No one can say, oh, he got in there because his dad's the CEO. No, that's not the case. And then for me, after that, I went and worked in New York, worked for a big real estate investment firm there. And I wanted to see, hey, can I cut it in this cutthroat, high energy, high demand arena? And I did it, and I was successful. And then I came back. So I came back to Utah about 2.5 years ago, and honestly, I just had a lot of energy and no longer had the place to redirect it. And I started running up mountains. And how did that happen? I heard people do trail running, and so I said, oh, trail running, that means I'm on a trail. I guess I just have to run as hard as I can up and run as hard as I can down. Truth is, that's not actually what most people do. But I started doing it and learning, and people are like, man, you're really fast. I did my first race. Anyway, I could go into that, but why do I do it? It's sort of part of it. For me, man, that is my release. That's my Zen moment. Having a young family, having commitments in business and civic commitments, I get home and that's sort of when I have to turn it on, almost more than at work. I go to work to get a rest sometimes.
Really?
We got 3 young kids at
crunch
home.
all those numbers in me.
Yeah, but so the only time I have to myself is really early in the morning. So, like this morning, I was up at 4:30. I ran for 3 hours up in the mountains.
3 hours?
And
wow. That's a lot of running.
That's the only time I have to. It's frankly when I think through my day. I get most of my inspiration on a trail, for work, for life. Helps you manage stress, helps me sleep. And for me, it's a great equalizing factor, and it's been really fun just personally, like trying to test my physical limits, what I never really focused on in the past, and it's just been remarkable, running these races. I did a 100-mile race this year.
100 miles.
And there is no way to physically prepare for that. They say a 100-mile race is 50% physical and 50% mental. So, man, when I was out there on mile 94 and my whole body was collapsing and I could barely even walk, and getting up and continuing to push forward, it teaches you a lot about yourself and what you're really capable of, which I think typically is more than what you imagine. And you have to stress yourself to do it, but I think it applies physically, it applies intellectually, finding ways to challenge yourself. I think most people will be surprised what they find.
It's pretty cool to see that balance. We interview a lot of different people, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs, and the 3 big areas is your financial and your physical, and then your spiritual personal development.
Yeah.
And it seemed pretty well rounded. It's pretty cool to see that though, because you do see some off balance, and that really affects people's lives.
Yeah.
But that's pretty cool. And so that endurance on that 100-mile, does that transpose into your business dealings and how you persevere through projects too? Like psychologically, subconsciously?
Yeah, perhaps. There's definitely lots of parallels you can draw between running ultra marathons and I think and running a business. I think one of them is even these long races, you think you're doing it all on your own when actually you have support around you. On a 100-mile race, you have something called a pacer that you can have come support you.
Oh.
And it's sort of interesting because this person comes out and he'll run the last 50 to 30 miles with you.
So pretty far.
Still really far. But what does that person do? Well, it turns out really not very much at all. They're just running along with you and pointing out the roadblocks. Pointing out, hey, you got to turn here. Hey, you got to remind you to eat and to hydrate and do those basic things. When you're feeling really, really down, they're the person that says, hey, it actually happened by pacer. So at mile 94 of this race, I was done. I couldn't even walk. Everything hurt. It wasn't just, I was like, I can't even walk. How am I going to finish this race? And my pacer was a good friend of mine and sort of got into my head and said, what are you going to do? You got 6 miles left. You're going to stop here. And I got really pissed. I started yelling out there. It was the middle of the night, and I'm screaming at them, and I got this rush of adrenaline that started from my head, and I could literally just feel it work down my body. I went from not being able to stand to running 8-minute miles again. And it was just the most remarkable experience, all in my head, and it connected. I mean, there was a physiological connection, too, with the adrenaline coming through, but it was my pacer, it was that support that was giving me that. And I sort of view that pacer as sort of like your mentor in business, right? Someone there, like, look, you still have to do all the heavy lifting, but you need someone there who's done it before, who can point out where you're going. You need someone before who can, when you're really feeling down, can light the fire underneath you and get you moving again, and to let you know. And then when you've crossed the finish line, then you enjoy it together. You got someone there to celebrate.
That's pretty cool. That is really cool. I want to sum up some of the wisdom you've shared here. And I'm going to talk about just a couple of things here I captured. One is, let's see. To get started. For people getting started, flipping homes is maybe a good way for a lot of people to get started small.
Yeah.
And that's where you find something that's crappy, you can fix it up, and then sell it. So you can start with a really small project that's not massively detrimental to you, and then scale from there and continue to grow. And then
build equity that way.
And as you build more equity, you can move into larger projects as well. Partnering up is a good thing if you're partnering up with someone with expertise. And I was thinking about that because I haven't had a lot of partners, but I have partnered up on some projects. And the one rule that I think a mentor told me years back is partner up with someone who's way better than you, way more experienced, and has way more capital than you. And if you can pull that off, you got a lot better chance than if you partner up with somebody who's very strapped on capital and knowledge and that. Then you're carrying them, right? So I love that one. Real estate works in 10-year cycles, but bankers work on 5-year memories. That's one for the books. That's an important one to think about.
You see that right now. I mean, what can I say about that? What I'll say is, for example, during the last recession, banks were trying to compete for the business, and they were levering up. They were offering at that point, I'll give you 80% of your value as a loan. I'll give you, and this kept increasing it. And Woodbury's actually said, no, that's free money, that's easy money, but we're going to hold back. We want lower leverage. And that actually takes discipline, because when the money's sitting in front of you, it's easy to take, but it's important when you're planning for the long term.
It's tempting to take it and then get another project, and then pretty soon you're so thin, right?
You're so thin, and you've spread out. Yeah, exactly.
And that's what happened in the computer business. We had 400 plus competitors in the Utah market. After 2008, 2009, we had 2 viable ones left that were comparably our not even comparable, like half our size, even a third of our size, and we bought both of those companies.
Yeah.
And then we were done. So that's something to be said by not being leveraged. Big thing though.
Yeah.
So and that was the last one. Don't be leveraged too hard. Manage your risk. You may grow a little more slowly, but you got to look at the long term.
Yeah.
And that's what I really love about the whole Woodbury family is that long term. It's not a short term get rich quick.
Yeah, right.
It's build something that lasts for quite a while. Is there any last tips of wisdom you'd love to share to the entrepreneurs out there? This is sure a privilege to have you here.
I can't think of anything right now.
All right.
Yeah,
so
this was great.
Exercise.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you or your family, what you guys are working on right now?
Yeah. Well, for sure, our website is a good place to look at it. I think just visiting our properties, you sort of see what we're about.
What's the website? Woodbury?
WoodburyCorp.com.
Corp.com.
We are very close to launching our new website that I think is a little more.
Yours looks good now.
Oh, thanks. Well, we have a new one coming, look even better, hopefully.
Yeah.
That has a little better information. With the 100 years, we're doing some other things. We're actually creating a Woodbury museum.
Oh, wow.
Tiny. When I say museum, we're dedicating a very small portion of one of our buildings to create a location where we can bring in all the company and family history. So once that's up and running, that could be a place. But, they can always reach out to me on LinkedIn or any other way to connect and to learn more.
I thank you so much for being on, and thank you for starting to mentor me on some of this commercial real estate. I've been doing it a little bit, but thank you for helping me take it to the next level. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
And everybody, thanks for tuning in to Dan's Millionaire Code. Remember, there's no charge. You don't have to buy anything. You can't pay to be a sponsor on here. People like Danny are people that just want to share what they're doing with you so you can implement it. So remember the 3 things I asked you. 1, if you learn something valuable here, execute it. And don't just talk about it, execute it. 2, share it with your friends and family. And 3, take 10% of your gains and give it to a great charity. You've been watching Dan's Millionaire Code. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.